coming up next here on Ghana Tonight. Public uproar over the reports that huge sums of money have been stolen from the bedroom of the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia. Dapaah. Many have been asking fundamental questions: how the minister got that much money and why she kept it in her bedroom. Yeah, we have details, including seeking some possible answers to the questions that many of you have been asking about this particular issue and the developments so far as we do know. Here's what we have and the information specifically about the details of this particular case in court. We have all the details, but this is President Akufo-Addo to his appointees.
I've said it, and I'll repeat it again. Those who are coming to this administration thinking that it's an avenue for making a lot of money are going to be disappointed. And I'll repeat it again. Those who are coming to this administration thinking that it's an avenue for making a lot of money are going to be disappointed. They better go to the private sector. That is where people make money, not in government.
Now, when this story broke, a number of you have been asking the basic question as to how a serving public officer, and that's very important in the equation, the denominator of the serving public officer, and how come she got this much money? Why did she keep it in her bedroom? Okay, and then also the question about whether all these, there's been some justification that she owns probably certain other private businesses that may have come. Are all these declared on the public, that's the asset declaration form that the Auditor General has? And has the Auditor General the power to even open it, to authenticate whether it's a true reflection of the assets of the people, the appointees of this particular administration? These questions, and especially at the time and where we find ourselves as a nation, you can understand the public sentiment about this particular issue. Let's get to the court details, at least so far, what we do know. My colleague, Dennis Wedam, is going to run us through what was presented in court, who are the complainants, and the persons who have been accused, and how the money was spent by these house helps and their boyfriends and the ex-boyfriend and the father. Dennis, what do we know?
Well, so Alfred, it's important for us to put this whole issue into perspective, because the conversation out there appears as though the minister in question, and that's the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, is the one who is under fire or who is under investigation of some sort. But that really, it's not the case, because this is coming out of a complaint she and her husband lodged at the police station. The police conducted investigation and eventually gone to court. So what we know, that for this particular issue, the complainants in this matter are Daniel Osei Kufuor, who is the husband of the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, and then Cecilia Dapaah, who is the minister of that particular sector. Now,
okay. So Daniel Osei Kufuor, that name there is the husband of the minister?
Yes, that's the husband of the minister. So the two of them are the complainants in this matter.
Okay, great. What?
Yes, so now 5 people have been accused in this matter, and we need to understand who these 5 people are and the roles that each of them played, because that will eventually help us understand the kind of charges that were preferred against them. So when you look at the accused persons as we have them, A1, that's accused person 1, is Patience Boche Mabena. She is 18 years of age. She's the house help to the complainants. I did indicate earlier the complainants are the minister and her husband. A2, Sarah AJ, she's 30 years of age, and she was a former house help to the complainants in this particular matter. A3, that is Benjamin Sowa. He is 29 years. He is boyfriend to A1. Now, A1 we do know is Patience Boche. So that's
the first accused.
The first accused person, who is the house help to the complainants. Fantastic. So that is her boyfriend. A4 is Kweku Boche, and that is A1's father. That is Patience's father.
I see.
And there's a last accused person who is 34 years, Malik Dauda. Malik Dauda is the ex-boyfriend of Patience.
Wow.
So these are the 5 accused persons. Now, for you to understand how all of this thing works out, the story we are told, or the facts of the case are that the accused person, A1 and A2, at some point between July 2020 and then October 2020.
You mean 22?
Sorry, 22, sorry, not 20, 22. They agreed to work together to steal some items and money belonging to Cecilia Dapaah, who is the minister. So when you look at the charge sheet, they indicate who the property belongs to.
We have a copy of the charge sheet.
Yes, we have the copy of the charge sheet.
Good.
In which you would find that it is the property of the minister that's, or the properties of the minister that were stolen. Now, these are the items that we know that have been stolen. For instance, right from cash of 1 million US dollars and then 300,000 euros. They also have clothes and bags valued at 95,000 cedis. We have jewelries valued at 95,000 US dollars. We have 6 pieces of kente worth 90,000 cedis, sorry. We have 6 sets of men's suits valued at 3,000 US dollars. And then we have cash of 350,000.
All of these.
So all of these
were said to have been the items stolen.
Yes.
From the bedroom.
Exactly.
And the 6 set of men's suits valued at $3,000, you understand, belongs to the husband.
Precisely.
And you have a cash of $1 million.
Exactly.
In the bedroom.
Yes.
Wow.
Per the facts, we are told that this was not a one-off thing. It had been ongoing for some time, like I mentioned, between July and October of last year. So that's perhaps is a reason you see that you have such huge volumes of money involved.
So, but the period is instructive, Dennis. Let's stay a bit on this. You're saying that between this alleged stealing by the two happened between July and October 2022.
Yes.
And this case was filed in court when?
June 2023. That's last month.
June 2023. So
yes, but they were officially before the circuit court just this week in July.
I see.
So it presupposes that there was some sort of investigation ongoing. But then again, we were told that even though the incident was ongoing, I mean, the stealing was ongoing, the complainants could not figure it out early until one day that husband of the minister walked into their bedroom to catch one of the accused persons red-handed in the act. And that was what pricked them to begin to now look into their properties to determine that some of them were not in there. But what is still left unanswered, I mean, you can't find that on the facts of the issue, is why it has had to take so much time for this to come before the law courts.
In fact, that's why I asked that question, so we're able to contextualize.
But Alfred, one other thing that we also need to know, like I was saying, we need to establish the basis of who has been charged with what.
Absolutely.
So the first 2 people, I mentioned the first 2 accused persons, A1 and A2, who at some point have been house helps in the house. They have been charged with conspiracy and then stealing because they were directly involved in the act. For the rest, who is the boyfriend of the first accused person, and the A4, who is the father of the first accused person, they also benefited from the proceeds of the stealing. And for that matter, they were charged with dishonestly receiving. Of course, there's another A5, who is the ex-boyfriend of the accused person, also benefiting
the ex-boyfriend of which of the house helps? Is it Patience?
The first one, Patience.
The 18-year-old?
Yes.
So Malik, the 34, that is the 5th accused person, is the ex-boyfriend
of Patience. The current boyfriend is Benjamin, 29-year-old.
And he's also alleged to have benefited from the booty.
Yes, the 65-year-old is the father of Patience. Now, Sarah, who was once upon a time a house help, has also been in the picture, and she's been charged with conspiracy because at a point in time, they worked together. One will be at the gate, we on the lookout, and the other will be in there doing the stealing. In fact, per the facts, A2, who is Sarah, will be in the bedroom doing the action, and then Patience will be at the gate, being on the lookout. Now, let's see how this money was spent.
Please. This $1 million.
Yes.
And the 300,000 euros and millions of
But mind, let's put on record that of all the monies that we have here, when you add them up, it will not be up to the $1 million US. And that's for obvious reasons. When you read the facts, it's indicated in there, I mean, and some parts of the story, that investigations are still ongoing. So it presupposes that this is what they've been able to discover per investigations.
Right.
Now, this is how they spend the money.
Tell me.
They bought a house which cost 70,000 US, and this house is furnished.
Furnished house?
Yes, it's a furnished house.
At where?
This house is at Amahia, that's in Accra.
$70,000?
Yes. Now, A1 and A3 bought a Hyundai Elantra, and that cost them 80,000 cedis.
So the A1 and A3, too, the 18-year-old?
Yes, so Patience and then the current boyfriend,
and the
Benjamin.
current boyfriend?
Yes.
They bought a Hyundai Elantra?
Yes. A1, who is Patience, gave 180,000 to A3, that's the current boyfriend, who also used it to buy a Honda Civic. Now, A1, who is Patience again, and then the boyfriend, Benjamin, they rented a 2-bedroom apartment at Tamale at the cost of 105,600 Ghana cedis for 2 years.
Wow.
A1 and A3, the same people, also rented a shop at Tamale at the cost of 120,000.
But why Tamale? I think that when we got into the church, there was a question about why Tamale. Why did they go in there?
So I think at the point
that?
they were hiding in Tamale.
Okay.
To put it that way, and in fact that's where they were actually arrested. When the police picked intelligence, they went there to arrest them, and that's where they also recovered some amount of money that I think that's they retrieved some $40,000 and then 72,619.70 Ghana cedis from them in that particular apartment in Tamale, the rented apartment. Okay. But of course, now this is where the other accused persons were brought in.
Great.
A1 gave 50,000 to A4, and A4 is A1's dad. That's Mr. Bochi. Right. And because of this 50,000, he has also been charged with dishonestly receiving. And unfortunately for him, if convicted, he will be treated as though he actually stole the money. Because that's what the law is.
I see. So the father of Patience,
yes,
who received 50,000.
50,000 from the daughter,
is going to be charged.
Has been charged already.
Has been charged.
Yes.
For
dishonestly receiving.
Dishonestly receiving. So yes. The court is expecting that what? He should have questioned
exactly
the source of the money.
That he ought to have known.
Either the 18-year-old daughter is giving to him.
Exactly. That's proceeds of stealing. A1 also gave 100,000 to A5. That's the ex-boyfriend. I think this figure was earlier quoted to be 1 million, but from the charge sheet, it is actually 100,000. And that's what A1 Patience gave to the ex-boyfriend.
So that's a very instructive one. So the report earlier suggested
it was a 1 million, but on the charge sheet that we have, it indicates that it's actually 100,000
so this
Ghana cedis.
Patience,
he too has been charged with dishonestly receiving.
I see. This is the ex-boyfriend.
The ex-boyfriend.
So Patience, 18-year-old, was magnanimous enough to give her ex-boyfriend 100,000 cedis.
Very kind of her.
Wow.
And the very last one, A2, who is no longer in the service of the complainants as a house help, also built a 3-bedroom house at Budumburam from the proceeds of whatever they were doing there. So she has been charged with conspiracy, she's been charged with stealing, and then, I mean, yes, so that's for her too.
So that's the former house help?
Yes.
Is the one who was going to build
3-bedroom house at Budumburam.
And so how much has the police retrieved again so
$40,000 US, and then 72,619.70 Ghana cedis.
Wow. This is serious. Dennis, hold on a bit for me, please. We have so many messages coming in on this. Let me bring in Mariada. She is Director of Programs of Ghana Integrity Initiative. Lawyer Justice Abdullahi is also going to be joining us shortly on this, because there's been that question about the question of law, really, and many people calling the Office of Special Prosecutor to get in there. The anti-money laundering law has also been referenced, and all of that. And really, what in the in God's name really is $1 million doing in the bedroom of the minister? All those questions, number of you are asking. We're reading them. Mariada, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. So after hearing the details of this case and how things have played out, how does this strike you as an anti-corruption person? Hello? Hello? Sorry. Mary, we'll come back to Mariada. Lawyer Justice Abdullahi is also joining us. Thank you so much for your time on Ghana Tonight. What's the position? The question I see coming up from many of our viewers is the position of the law on this matter specifically. What does the law say?
Thank you, Alfred. I have been trying to figure out any such laws, whether by way of common practice or by way of legislative enactment regulating where and how that a person can keep money. Just as a point of digression, a person may be an owner of money, but the money ultimately belongs to the state, as in the currency itself belongs to the state because it's the property of the state, even though it can be owned by an individual who has a right to use it the way he wishes, without necessarily having to infringe on the secondary ownership of the state, i.e. destroying the money or earning it illegally or unlawfully. And so what I came across was that most of our laws regulate how a person receives money, how the person earns money, and how the person spends the money. So how they receive, the receiving, and then so the inward and exit are the places that the law tries to intrude on the privacy of a person's ownership of money. So if you earn the money unlawfully, the law would naturally deal with you. If you spend the money on unlawful conduct, the law will deal with you. So, i.e., if you spend the money financing, let's say, terrorist activities or other unlawful activities, or you earn the money through crime or other matters bordering on prescribed conduct, then the law will deal with you.
I see.
After earning the money,
Lawyer Abdullahi, hold on a bit for me. I just want to hold on that particular point you just made, but because this is a serving public officer for that matter, and I'm talking about a minister in this instance. That's a very, very crucial aspect of the conversation that we cannot take away. So some have called, for instance, the special prosecutor to take an interest in this matter and all of that because of that denominator of the minister in this particular case.
That is a very important call if it is a call you're making, but I know it came in the form of a question. But it is very important. And it is legitimate to invite the Office of the Special Prosecutor into this matter, considering the fact that we all have a fair idea of the earnings of public servants, including ministers, including this particular minister, Cecilia Dapaah. We have a fair idea of how much she's supposed to make at the end of every month. And so, and we have a fair idea of how her assets and indeed her liabilities, because as a public servant, she ought to have declared her assets when she assumed office. And so naturally, once we have a fair idea of all these, we would need to know where she could have had an uncountable amount of Ghana cedis from, millions of Ghana cedis, as the report suggests. In fact, I've seen a copy of the charge sheet, and indeed, the charge sheet confirms what the media men are reporting. And 300,000 euro and $1 million. These are not monies you can simply overlook, regardless of who has it. And so, definitely we need to have answers as to where they came from, how she acquired them, whether indeed it's her money. Per the case in court, it appears that indeed it's her money. And so once that one is out, she would have to answer how she got these monies and where she got them from. And that's what circumstances she became the owner of this money. How long these monies have been sitting there are questions that we need to know, because we need to know this and justify that indeed with her declared assets with the Auditor General and other state institutions that are concerned, because those questions would reveal the truth or otherwise of the circumstances of this money.
Okay, does that like stay with me a bit? You know, and Dennis, you see, this is as you student or the legal, you know, fraternity would say, this is a complainant turned accused, because this is a minister and the husband who took this case to court because their money has been stolen, and now all of this is coming out and we are beginning to raise questions about where they got the money. Okay, but let me bring in Mariada. Mary, can you hear me now? Okay, we would check Mary's connection. But that question about, and Dennis, the minister in this instance, because this is not just anybody, the public officer for that matter, because there are some people who have come online saying, oh, there are a lot of people who have more than $1 million in their rooms. That's fine, they are private people. Okay, but in that instance where a minister, a serving public officer, comes in, what's your take? What's the position of the law on this?
Well, so I've been following the conversation quite closely, and it's not any different from what Justice Abdullah just said, that for the fact that this person is a public officer, and if there's any reason to suspect that the money that she has or her lifestyle, and not just her, if it's any other public officer, does not match with what she's reasonably expected to earn, then there's every reason to investigate so that she justifies same, failure of which would allow the state to take some actions against her. So personally, I think that maybe we are probably at that stage where maybe this wasn't intended. This was, like you mentioned, somebody went to complain that a thief has stolen my thing. And then the thing in question turns out to also raise issues for you yourself. But that will not take away the matter of the theft in any way, because when you are proving stealing, it's immaterial whether or not you own a thing. What is to be proven is that the item stolen does not belong to the accused people. So if that is proven, that should be it.
We're taking cognizance of your messages. Some people are asking that you run through the item stolen again. So we'll do that, okay? And then also, Mary, thank you so much for joining us, if you can hear me. The politically exposed persons, that category, in this whole conversation as well, from the anti-corruption perspective, how does the details of this case strike you?
Alfred, good evening, and good evening to your viewers as well. This evening, it is a very sad one listening to the discussion on this matter. It's unfortunate again because in this country, we have tried as much as possible to deal with some of these issues around politically exposed persons, putting in place regulations to ensure that some of these things do not happen. Again, I believe this is the government, if I am not being hasty in my conclusion, to say a government that has promoted digitization, has promoted that we ensure that our money is digitalized. And so there are several platforms out there to ensure that we do the right thing. And so for a minister of state who is supposed to be in a government which is espousing a digital economy where we are doing very well, ensuring that we do not keep money on us, to have so much money on her at home and not to even notice that some of it had been taken out is what boggles the mind. It's what you wonder how it can happen. Does that mean the money was so much that she didn't even know how much it was, that she didn't go back to check if it was there or not? It's interesting. The issues are just too plentiful. However, you also then begin to ask yourself, if she would begin to say that if it was illegally acquired wealth, maybe she wouldn't have gone to court. But that is besides the point. The point remains that a public officer who is paid a certain amount of money, which all who are in Ghana know because these are very public figures, and then this person has such amounts of money on them, then we need to begin to ask questions, because that is what the legal regime says. And so the YOCOs and the OSPs have a task to ensure that some investigation is done into this matter to unravel if indeed, as a politically exposed person, if her wealth can't be explained by the amounts that were found on her, the quantities of jewels and others. We are not saying she's guilty in any way, but there should be something done to ensure that we all begin to comprehend and appreciate and maybe begin to understand how this has happened. And I believe the biggest person who should be more worried than all of us as Ghanaians is the president, her employer, the person who put her there. Where is the money coming from? We should ask. How did it get there? And why is it that somebody who has such huge monies did not bank them? Is it that if it goes to the bank, there would be some trails that cannot be explained? Is it? I really do not know. It really boggles the mind. And we are fighting corruption. This canker called corruption. We need, if we want to fight it, we need to ensure that some of these behaviors do not occur at all, unfortunately.
About the president being the most worried. As we speak, at least nothing has been heard of the presidency as yet. But would you support the call if the presidency or her appointer is minded to investigate this matter, and then even before that, have her step aside for investigations to take place?
Alfred, the worrying thing is this is not today. It's happened some time back.
Yes.
And so I am very sure that if the president is in charge, as we would all want to believe, then the national security apparatus would have picked up this, particularly when it has gone to court and it's become a public matter. We are not saying that those who stole have done the right thing. No, that can go on. It is good that she decided to send people who have illegally acquired wealth through her to court to be dealt with. But again, we also are interested because she is a public figure, and we believe that the president who has put her there should even be more interested, because at this level, if the national security apparatus are working as we believe them to be, then they should have interrogated this issue and dealt with it even before it came to the public's view. If they have not done so, then we believe the president needs to take some action as quickly as possible, because the optics are not good. They are not good at all. The impressions and perceptions out there are significantly against what we would say the appointers and also this lady. Many people will begin to conjecture. And so if the president wants all of us as Ghanaians to take his word that he is fighting corruption, unfortunately, in many of the instances, he has let us down. In this case, we want to see some action, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. In fact, let me say it, that it doesn't make a lot of sense that anybody in this country would have 1 million Ghana cedis, even at home, let alone to say $1 million, 300,000 euro, and so much more. Are we saying the banking system, we have destroyed it to such an extent that we also do not believe in it? The president should be worried, and the president should take action.
One point there about how this also, the signal is sent about the financial situation that we're even dealing with and the stance of the president. They are calling on him to take action as we speak. We don't know what's happening. Then, Mary, please stay with me. Dennis, so just a quick recall, the items we're talking about has been stolen, because Mariada makes the point about these politically exposed persons. See, when you go to the bank, even you and I, individuals, when you are depositing a certain amount of money in your bank, the bank would raise some red flags if that amount of money exceeds a certain limit. Okay, but there's a lot more scrutiny for politically exposed persons, and some persons they categorize under a certain red zone because they know where you are and what you do. some of the banks have even categorized some pastors under that category because some of them are alleged to be, engaged in money laundering and so on. So they have to question them a bit more to find out the source of their money. So you can understand why people raise questions about the source and why she's keeping that much money in there if the source is not questionable, is it not?
Right, yes, Alfred, and that's largely the conversation. There are others who are of the view that because she feels that she takes the money to the bank, there'll be questions raised because of her anti-money laundering regulations and all that. That's the reason for which she did not want to take the money to the bank. But of course, because Mary Ada mentioned the money bit and the reasons, the fears that she was wondering why such huge sums of money will be home, I'll just do a recall of just the cash that was at home. The cash is in three denominations, not denominations, three currencies, sorry. One part of it is in cedis, one part in US dollars, and the other part is in euros. So the part that's in Ghana cedis is 350,000 cedis. The dollar bit is 1 million US dollars, and then the euros bit is 300,000 euros. For the other valuables, now we begin to talk of clothes and bags, which are valued to be 95,000 cedis. We talk of jewelry, also valued at 95,000 US dollars. We are talking of 6 pieces of kente worth 90,000 cedis, and of course, 6 sets of men's suit valued at 3,000 US dollars. It will be interesting to know who, but let's just put on record that these things were stolen only by patients.
That is the 18-year-old.
The 18-year-old, who is the substantive house help. So we are beginning to imagine who these things were given to.
Wow.
That's just on the side.
Just on and it's a very, very important side information to give. Mary, in 30 seconds, so there have been calls for the OSP to also take interest in this matter. Your take, please.
It is critical that the OSP becomes very interested in this matter because it is within his remit to also look at some of these. And if there is any way he does not even understand what is happening, then confiscation of assets also comes in there. And the worrying aspect is, according to the case, the lady went in to take these monies at various times. So it means there was much more. What she stole, which is quantified, is what we know about. So that is why there is a need to do further interrogation into this issue. And OSP and Yoko, which have a mandate, particularly Yoko, which has a mandate to do anti-money laundering work, and FIC should be interested, very interested, to pick up this issue and deal with. The OSP can come in because he can also deal with issues on corruption or suspicions of corruption by public officers and even private interests. And so in this case, we believe that this should be done as quickly as possible so that we all then clear the doubts in our minds as to how this could have happened.
Right on. Mary, I appreciate your time in the day. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And Lawyer Justice Abdullahi, so you also support the calls that President asked to have that step aside and for investigations to kick in?
Immediately, without waiting for the president to react. That would be my best recommendation. And I think it is in her favor, in their interest, to do this without any call from the president or the any other appointing authority or wherever her interest may probably be. It is in her interest. But I do not think she should have even allowed this to come into the public domain in the first place. But nature has a nice way of dealing with matters like this.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Justice Abdullahi is private legal practitioner, and also to you, Mary Ada, Director of Programs, Ghana Integrity Initiative and Anti-Corruption Organization. Thank you, Dennis. This is Ghana Tonight. Stay with me. We'll be back shortly after this quick break.